can the Saudis save boxing for us? I know that Ryan Garcia said that he sacrificed himself against Tank Davis to quote-unquote save boxing, but I honestly think that the Saudis could in fact have a huge positive impact on the sport. Here's why. Number one, they've already had several large cards, as you know, and they've gone off successfully, chiefly the last few big heavyweight fights. Now, key point is, of course, they do have the funds available to pay top-level fighters. And the key there is that kind of squashes all the cross-promotional little quibbles. So, if you throw enough money at the fighters and their promoters, then that solves all the problems, right? Between Al Heyman and the PBC, Bob Arum and Top Rank, and Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, maybe even Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. But that's where a lot of the bottleneck happens when it comes to getting the so-called fights that fans want to see. When it comes to getting those fights made, it's just, it's because each fighter is represented by a different promotional outfit. But money seems to be the universal solvent for all business matters, right? So they have the capability to get fights made. That's number one. Number two, and even more importantly, it seems like I can't remember the name of the gentleman who's sort of in charge of the Saudi boxing, Saudi fight athletic commission, but he said unequivocally that they want real fights. They don't want, in other words, what I'm taking that to mean is they don't want these YouTuber, TikToker type gimmick fights just to make a quick buck. They want to see real fights. So it shows me that they have a real passion for the game. And that's not surprising given that they, was Saudi Arabia that worked hand in hand with the UFC during the pandemic to make the Fight Island fights happen. They pulled off the impossible when the rest of the world decided it needed to shut down. And these guys did it in a safe, organized, and presumably profitable manner. So they already have established a track record of capability and professionalism, and giving both the viewers and the athletes what they want and need in order to come back for more. And here's the thing, I think the Saudis can make an even bigger impact on the amateur boxing scene at a global scale. The Saudis have done so already with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Those who follow BJJ know that it's the Abu Dhabi is kind of held as like the highest accomplishment. If you can win the Abu Dhabi BJJ tournament, that's pretty much a world championship. That's about as glamorous as it gets in the BJJ world. And what they've done over the years is create a sort of like a tiered system where jiu-jitsu competitors fight each other at on a more regional or sort of not quite local but regional level within a country. And if they win at that tournament, then they advance to compete against others before they eventually hopefully make it all the way to actually fight at the Abu Dhabi tournament on at the world championship level. So my point there is they've already got a framework for how to establish from the sort of regional level all the way up to the global level. And if they were to do the same thing with boxing, we could really rejuvenate amateur boxing, which I think is much needed at this point. For one, we have some of these fighters that just bypass the adult amateur competition altogether, such as Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, and many others, they just go straight from fighting as in the kids division to turning professional at the age of 16, 17. I mean, hats off to those who can do that and do well at it. But there is a big vacuum, I think, for developing amateur adult fighters. Should they want to go pro at some point or not, it's still important to have a pinnacle for amateur fighters to reach for. And now, unfortunately, I guess it's not just that some youngsters are eager to turn pro. I think there's also problems at the international amateur boxing level. IABA, which is the international governing body for boxing that reports to the International Olympic Committee, they've been called out multiple times for corruption, and so then they were banished. And I'm I don't really follow amateur boxing that much anymore, but there's been lots of issues with the amateur boxing organization at the international level, and that just filters down and makes it sort of less appealing, and less of a sort of goal for the youngsters to want to reach for, if Olympic gold doesn't really mean what it used to. So my point is, if the Saudis decided they wanted to set up sort of a parallel Abu Dhabi tournament system for amateur boxing, I think they could pull it off. They already have the logistics and the know-how. It's really more the knowledge of how to do this. They already have that in place from running their Brazilian jiu-jitsu tournaments and running them, at a global scale. So that's just my hope that that maybe they will take that on and help us rejuvenate amateur boxing for the adults who may or may not want to go pro. But I don't know, I think it's important for there to be a big sort of prestigious global level tournament. That's the inspiration for people to train hard every day in the gym. They've got to keep those hopes and dreams alive and set a goal for themselves to move towards. So what do you guys think? Do you think you'd like to see a global amateur tournament that scales down to the regional or maybe even city level? Unfortunately, we've lost the New York City Golden Gloves years ago. It no longer exists, which is really, really sad. But let me know what you guys think. What do you think of the amateur program in the United States right now? What do you think of amateur programs in some of the other countries like the UK, Australia, New Zealand, France? Tell me your thoughts. How can we rejuvenate boxing? I look forward to reading your comments below. Thank you.